Hello, this is Sculpt January number 16, and this time the task was to do a helmet. I decided to model the rough shape of this helmet before sculpting, and I went through a few ways of doing this, and I thought I'd just include them because then you can kind of see a workflow and the fact that I'm kind of making mistakes really about the way I'm building things sometimes, and it's a bit of trial and error, and you have to sort of experiment to get what you want. So again, building the basic shape before going into any modelling, using the mirror modifiers and just extrusion tools, basic stuff. It feels like it's been a while since I've done any actual modelling, so I'm making lots of mistakes like forgetting to put clipping on with the mirror. So I just wanted the basic structure so that I could sculpt the shapes from there. So I'm going to go across into Dine Topo. The problem I had and the worry I had, I've done a helmet before and I've got a YouTube video of that and the process, so it's quite detailed, and I wanted to sort of try a few things out in the workflow to see if they'd work. But the problem you have is that it's quite thin metal, so if you're using the Dine Topo and you go to the edges, it can kind of pull and distort your edges around, and therefore you lose your shape. Also, I wanted to sculpt on the texture of dents and scratches, and to do that you're much better off with the multi-resolution modifier and that workflow of sculpting. So what I thought, I'd do the Dine Topo, get my basic shape, try not to mess up the edges too much, and then decimate it and multi-resolution modifier on it. And this kind of worked. It's working up to this point. The multi-resolution modifier doesn't seem to like triangles that much, and that's what the Dine Topo creates. So it's not a brilliant workflow, and a much better workflow would be to do a retopology rather than a decimate and then put it into the multi-resolution modifier, which is just a bit longer. So this is the fun bit, sculpting these details. I missed a bit of recording, unfortunately. I just lost it. But you should be able to see the general workflow here. I did use the mask tools this time, something I don't often use, but really useful, so I use them to sort of pull out that strange sort of thing on the forehead, whatever that is. So I'm still in Dine Topo, and I'm having lots of problems because it kind of failed when I went across the multi-resolution modifier. And it was really frustrating, and I kept going backwards and forwards and having all sorts of troubles with my computer lagging, and you can probably even see it, the screen going sort of faded out. So I decided to do a fair bit of details with the Dine Topo and then change the multi-resolution and just do one subdivision for that. I also wanted to get some of the dents and cracks into the armour with the Dine Topo. But I think I went way too far with the Dine Topo. It was probably unnecessary to go to this point, and I could have probably added some of this detail in the multi-resolution modifier. But it looks okay, so that's fine. I was toying with the fact of trying to do everything in the dime topo, adding scratches and things like that, and I thought that really definitely isn't going to work. So I decided to move to the multi-resolution modifier. But before doing that, I thought I'd add in the cracks, and I came up with a big problem here. I was using the grease cut tool in the Sculpt tools to cut out my mesh, and I thought it wasn't working, but it was actually working. So I ended up with sort of two meshes on top of each other, and I think that caused me lots of problems later for my bake. Blender really doesn't like it if you've got sort of mesh within your mesh, if that makes sense. So there's quite a thin layer of metal in this helmet for the sort of cheek plates and things like that, and there is space between them, of course, and if there's any mesh or polys that sit inside that by accident, it seems to mess everything up. It can really cause lots of problems with rigging as well. So you must avoid that wherever possible. So this is the multi-resolution modifier, and you can see how good it is at adding details like this. So I've got a brush with some scratches and dents, and I'm using that with the anchor brush. I have got details on that in another tutorial, very similar to this, where I make a Spartan helmet. This one's a bit more detailed than that, and I mess with the textures a bit more and have a bit more fun. Although I say it was fun, it was a bit frustrating at times because the textures would not work because, and I'm assuming it's because of that problem I had with the grease cut. Most of my brushes are from textures.com. I'll put a link in the description if I remember. If I don't, can someone remind me please? There it is. There's the problem I had where it was creating lots of mesh inside my model, and that caused all sorts of problems when going to bake. I'm worried as well that the bake process struggled because it was such a high resolution mesh. I applied the multi-resolution modifier in the hope that that would help, but still ended up with quite a lot of problems. I wish there was a quick way to sort of make mesh solid. It would be really useful for 3D printing as well, because that can cause problems for 3D printing. One question I did have was about 3-point lighting. I just use sun lamps, and someone was asking why is it I just put them next to each other, surely that's not 3-point lighting. With sun lamps it doesn't matter where they're positioned, they cast a ray of light from that direction, so you can put them all right next to each other, which just makes it a little bit easier, but it's where they're pointing. As you can see, you can quickly see there I had them all pointing in different directions, and I give them all different colours, and it makes things like the metal look quite nice. I changed the texturing workflow slightly this time and used my cavity and ambient occlusion as factors in the mix shader rather than colours themselves. But that's probably something I'll go into for another tutorial. So there it is, number 16, a helmet. Thanks again for all your support. It's really keeping me going. It's really amazing to see the comments and people saying they like my work, and I think that's the only reason why I keep going, really. So thanks very much. Links in the description, so get across to Sculpt January. See you there.